Questions about anything? How about our folks at home? Are they back in the rooms yet?
30 seconds.
30 seconds? Okay, we'll wait for them.
I know what you're looking for. I haven't had one of these in a few days.
So,
I think you might notice these start tasting just like the white ones.
what are we smoking? You smoking Kit Kats over there?
Trying to help them like these.
Yeah, please, eat as many as you want and more. Eat more than you want.
I have a question for you, David.
Yes, sir.
It wasn't even in this. I remember hearing you say something about the luminescence or like personal style. Where does your color scheme, your like doing the vests and everything like that, where does that originate from? Is there like a reason for that? Or it's just because you just like them?
Yes.
Yeah?
Both. I guess.
Both? So I remember you said something about like luminescence and like colors.
Yeah, there's a whole system that I use, and a few select people have had access to, that utilizes vibration in terms of fashion and colors that balance and amplify a person's inherent vibrational signature, and amplify certain attributes and characteristics. And that system is called a luminescence. It is a copyrighted proprietary system, and so I can tell you about it, but I can't.
Yeah. Where to
teach
find it?
Yeah. So you can do a Google search on a luminescence and it should come up. In terms of the vest is a pretty interesting story. Way back when it was just David Party of One running the show, I had to find as many different ways to fly without backup as I could. And so back in the early days, and you can see remnants of that on the YouTube channel when you look at some of our products or some of the videos, where it's literally me, maybe a group of people, and I have this little Bluetooth microphone, clipped to my vest or whatever. And what happened was, back in the day when I started, I was using a lavalier mic, and the transceiver would clip to your belt, and I didn't have a lot of money, honestly, and so I bought cheap shit. And one day, the little plastic clip on my receiver broke, and I couldn't afford to buy a new one. So I had this old vest that the receiver fit in the pocket. And so I wore the vest and I put the receiver in the pocket. And I've always liked vests. I just never thought of them as being, trendy or fashionable, because they haven't been for a while. And I just kept wearing vests, and I just kept finding new vests to wear because I didn't want to keep wearing the same shit on camera all the time. And then eventually I started finding cooler and cooler vests, and I started really enjoying the look, and I just kept finding vests that kind of resonated with I've always had a penchant for anachronistic clothing, and so that's kind of how it evolved.
Cool.
And then I started to find vests that were in harmony with my luminescence patterns and templates, and now it's kind of been a trademark.
Yeah. Right.
And it's my personal style now, but it actually, I've always liked vests, they were never trendy, so I avoided them. But then I had a reason to use one, and it stuck. Now I have a TJ, and I don't need to worry about cheap shit anymore. Right?
When you get analyzed for luminescence, if you analyze and say a year later you use like a third of your body mass,
No, that won't matter.
it won't.
No, that has nothing to do with your harmonic tone. In fact, what will happen is when you get toned and you start putting the clothes on, you'll look 20 pounds lighter and about 4 to 6 inches taller. Some of the people, I found an old luminescence video that isn't supposed to exist, where someone who will not be named is getting his toning done in front of a group, and you can literally see him get shorter and dumpier as they take the pattern off the clothing off of him. Right? And unless you knew it was Seth, you wouldn't know it was him because he had no beard then. Right? He looked very different. But the truth is that I've seen 280-pound guys lose 40 pounds just by the colors they have on, and the textures and the shapes, as if it's in their harmonic tone. It's like bringing a gun to a knife fight. Right? But Taylor, for whatever reason, has kind of got off the deep end with their pricing, and it's exorbitant now.
We should do it like 5K.
You tried poly, right? Did you get toned?
Not yet.
Yeah, she's really gotten expensive.
Are you able to just get consultants? Because when I looked it up, you had to go through like a weekend training.
Well, there's a 4-day, once you get toned, there's a 4-day where they kind of introduce you into the system and teach you about makeup, and it's primarily geared towards women. The whole system is primarily geared towards women, which is sad because we could really, it really is a powerful system. But most people won't invest in that because basically once you get toned and you look at your wardrobe and realize everything in your fucking closet is wrong, you gotta go out and buy all new shit. And most of the time when they put the colors and the fabrics and the textures on you and you look at what actually resonates with you, you say to yourself, there's no way in the fucking world I'm gonna wear that. And that's the problem. And then you have it on for a couple of days and all of a sudden you don't want to go back, you know. So yeah, it's a great enhancer, but it won't let you do anything if you don't have a skill set.
Right.
So there are things that actually do the work, and there are things that enhance the things that do the work. And luminescence is definitely one of those generic enhancers.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand how to get rapport, you're kind of out of the work.
Yeah.
Right. So, any folks at home, any comments from our virtual folks? Not so much?
Lori says smurfing was fun.
Smurfing, I had a feeling she'd like that. Right. Okay, so here's where we're going to go next. Now, the first 4 days we introduced you to a system of interaction with people and of exerting influence. And Three Magic Questions is kind of where everything is where the road splits into 3 different areas: business applications, attraction applications, resistance removal applications, what have you. And this is one of the reasons why I think Three Magic Questions is so vitally important for us, because everything can, just like Grey Room can be used as a staging area for all kinds of therapeutic interventions, the Three Magic Questions protocol can be used as a platform to explore and operate within pretty much any context where 2 humans are interacting. And so there are 2 very distinct directions that the majority of your interests have shown today. One is attraction and dating. The other is profiling and protection and flagging people who are not so hot, right? And so this is very much, again, exactly what Three Magic Questions was designed to do. It was designed to stimulate attraction and connection and openness and vulnerability, while at the same time giving you an ability to screen people. Although the people who created this particular process never envisioned it being used to detect sociopaths, narcissists, and things of that nature, it does in fact allow us to take those profiling skills, which were basically designed for keep or not keep, to, keep or hell no. We can go that direction. And so that's kind of where I would like to take the majority of the data that I'd like to share with you today. And the primary reason for that is that, again, it's in harmony with everything. If we can get to some of the other stuff, we'll throw in other things here and there, but these are really the 2 big polarizing elements. And so we're going to show you how to begin to use Three Magic Questions to leverage intimacy, attraction, and so forth. And to do that, I want to take 2 very different pieces of information from 2 very separate agencies, and I want you to show you how we're going to begin to blend them within the context of the Three Magic Question Universal Persuasion Protocol that we've spent 4 days mastering, right? And the first thing I want to share with you is this 5-phase attraction formula. And there's this other thing I want to do here. Yeah, okay, so remember that the universal emotional attraction formula has 5 areas. Each of these areas, just like when we talk about the 4 horsemen of unstoppable hypnotic influence, are categories of technique. But if you want to develop very, very powerful emotional control with an individual, you must operate within these 5 parameters. And you're going to see how this particular system dovetails with this particular system, how it dovetails with what you've been learning. Okay? So the first thing that must happen is you must be proactive. You must know and understand the target. the environment, the obstacles, the advantages that you have. Once you have the profile of that person or that avatar, if you're marketing, this is where you create your customer avatar. You guys know what I'm saying when I mean when I say customer avatar?
Yes.
Right? That's all happening in the proactivity phase. Then you must actively go to where these types of people are found in abundance. Okay? Using your proactive template, you must change yourself to be as much like the person, to have as much in common with the person as possible. That can, and that means in everything in terms of life events, dress, schools, jewelry choices, the vernacular that you use, accents. You guys may have noticed that many times, especially when you meet somebody from another part of the country that has a very distinct accent, the more you like them, the more you tend to copy their accents. Right? That's a mirror neuron effect. It's a signal of growing rapport, openness, and connectivity. Right? What we're doing now is we're taking these seemingly random things and we're creating a profile. We're fitting ourselves to match that profile, to be as close to it as we can, in ways that are here's where it gets important, in ways that are recognizable to the subject. And isn't that what we do with criterion values? Right? We bond them, using their words, we link them to our stuff. Right? That's emotional appeal. Right? Now, the big one here is, and there's lots of ways we can do this. Once we've become proactive, once we've created identification, we now want to establish credibility in their world. Now, sometimes that comes from a title, sometimes that comes from a position of being older, but we have to establish some kind of status or authority in their world. Right? So in terms of vibing, when we come in and we match the energy of that person, we match the activity level, we have to in some way establish that we are a little bit higher on the social scale. We can do that through clothing, we can do that through dress, but we can't be so different or so above them that they can't identify. Right? So for those of you who are marketing, many times you're going to there's different approaches you can take. You can take the us versus them approach. You can take the hometown boy makes good approach. And in the hometown boy makes good approach, it's basically, hey, I was an idiot just like you, and I discovered this, and I want to share it with you. Right? So in that moment, you've said, I'm just like you, I had the same problem you had, and I discovered how to fix it. And because I can talk about your problems the way you describe them to yourself, that gives me credibility. And then I position myself as I solve these problems. Status gap. You understand? Right? And again, emotional appeal. I have a problem. I'm in pain. I need support. I need comfort. I need encouragement. I need. That's emotional appeal. Right? In the example I gave you earlier, in the human trafficking example, and I hate to use negative things like this, but there's a certain profile that the traffickers are looking for. They send somebody in that is a female working with the traffickers. You understand that the vast majority of human trafficking rings actually employ females to recruit. And so they come in and she identifies, she bonds, she becomes a friend, a peer. And then now she's got emotional appeal, she's got credibility. She introduces her to this hot guy, and she talks him up. That's being a wingman in the pickup and seduction world, but it's also social proof. Social proof. Somebody vouched for this person, and this person embodies all the fantasies that young girl has. Older man, hot car, lots of money, glamorous lifestyle, maybe a renegade. These are all things that are emotionally appealing, right? And then the affirmation begins. You begin to mine the person's psyche, you find out what they like, what they don't like, and you agree. You affirm that they're right. Jack Schaefer, in his book, The Like Switch, says that the golden rule of influence is we automatically like people who make us like ourselves. And Jack Schaefer was a counterintelligence operative for the FBI. He looked for spies. That was what he did. Okay? This is the affirmation phase. Doesn't matter what I espouse, what the teen or the lonely dude at the community center or whoever it is. If a person has a fight with their parents, this person automatically takes their side against their parents. And we automatically feel like we have an ally. That's affirmation. And because we're getting the emotional sustenance that we want from these people, we fight to keep it. We don't give it up, right? You've all experienced this. Anytime you brought somebody home your parents didn't approve of, what did you do? Exactly, right? There it is. It's the same dynamic. Doesn't matter the context. That's what happens. If somebody has ticked all these boxes in us and somebody doesn't approve of it, first of all, it creates that rift that the negative people are looking for, that they're gonna use affirmation to bridge and suck you in and make that gap even broader. Now, in a positive way, if we're counselors or whatever, the more we can show that we've been in their shoes, that we have similar experiences, the more they're gonna feel comfortable around us. Because of the position we have as a counselor, a therapist, whatever, we automatically have credibility. Now, credibility can come from a title, Dr. David Snyder, right? Grand Master David Snyder, right? There's a tremendous power in the trappings of authority, but it has to be moderated by these other things. See, if you have too much authority, I may feel like I have to listen to you, but I don't want to listen to you. Right? In these cases, the people want to do the things that they're being asked to do. Now, this is again a little bit on the negative side, but it's if you read Wendy Patrick's book, a vast number of children who are sexually abused maintain contact with their abuser even while they're in prison. Why? Because the emotional connection is so strong. Does that make sense? Right? Now, flip the script. If you're somebody who understands these principles and has a strong ethical code, we can guide people who are coming from troubled environments and guide them to be good citizens. In fact, that was one of the reasons that Wendy did such an intense study on this particular phenomena, because she was actually I forget if she was a Lutheran or Episcopalian minister. She did a lot of missionary work, and she felt that this particular strategy could be used to help people to come to religion, to come to God, right? And I think personally she kind of failed, not in her intention, but in her approach, because she wrote a book on it. And the problem is that when we start looking at these techniques and where they come from and how they work, it's hard to get rid of the psychic stink around it, right? But I want you to see that every system of influence that works has certain things in common. It's the use that you put them to, right? So you can be the people that turn this particular bomb into a tool that changes lives for the better, right? But you can also now recognize these approaches, these attempts at influence, when you're presented with them. Because if somebody shows up out of the blue that is just like you, that affirms every thought and idea and belief that you have, that represents everything that is emotionally desirable to you, maybe before you go rushing off into the sunset, you stop and say, wow, this is moving really fast and I really like this person. Maybe I should do a little more checking. Because this is one of the hallmarks that you're going to see in a lot of abusive relationships, is that sociopaths, psychopaths, potential abusers, they will compress the time it takes to go from stranger to intimacy. Like within a couple of days or a day or an hour, I said, we're best friends. Right? I used to get this all the time. People would come up to me and they'd talk to me like, we're friends because we're friends. Right? And that's the first flag. The minute somebody starts within a ridiculously short amount of time proclaiming you as friend, this and that and the other thing, that's what the first red flag that should go up. Because one of the first things that happens is the speed with which these people move through the stages of relationship. Yes?
Isn't that what seducers do?
Yes. That's the whole point, right? The tools are there. What are you going to do with them? Most people I know who go through the seduction community are actually, they're in love with the fantasy of being Casanova, but really they're just looking for one. They're really just looking for someone. And when they do, they're out. Some people go through that, buffet phase where they're blonde, redhead, brunette, whatever. And then all of a sudden, because all of a sudden they have the skill sets to get to at least have a shot at the vast majority of women they encounter that they would desire, what happens is they become more selective. Rather than looking for anything with a pulse, they actually look for someone they can talk to and relate to. And it's supposed to be that way. I want every man and woman on the planet to have the skills to have choice in mate selection, not just take what they can get, or like they have to take what comes along because they may not get anything else, which is a mindset that many people have. Okay? But yes, the whole point about the pickup and seduction community was a way to take these, take the randomness out of meeting and attracting people. And yes, so it does compress the time. But what we're looking for is people who want to go from just met to moving in. Right? And it might take a year for you to be comfortable enough with someone to even consider that option, where within 2 or 3 months, these people are trying to get, a key to your house and all these other things. Right? So and you have to decide ultimately, you have to decide what's an appropriate time frame for you. But keep in mind that anytime people are moving at a pace that's faster than you, that should be the first flag. Should be the first flag.
Go faster than the other, it's hard to keep them at the same pace.
Well, the thing is, one of the things that they want to do is they want to keep you emotionally off balance, like a whirlwind. If you watch Darren Brown's The Push, you'll see that's one of the things he does. Through the entire sequence, he keeps pounding on this happens and that happens, and the speed at which things are happening, and his conscious mind just checks out because it's bombarded by all this arousal, negative reinforcement. It's a crazy thing. But what's happening here is you're getting love bombed. Right? Because what's going to happen, from a predatory perspective, we're going to create this, and then anytime you don't do what I want you to do, you know what that feels like. After being together for 4 days, you know what that feels like. What if this is somebody who's been cultivating this dynamic with you for 2 months? You understand? And who had also systematically removed every other lane of route of support from you. You see, they make you emotionally dependent. Now, we don't have to do that as positive influencers. Our job is not to cut people off from the other emotional support people in their life. Our job is to use the power dynamic we've created to guide them to the lifestyle that is better for them by their standards, right? But again, this is a model that can be used unethically as well as ethically. So it's really up to you, what you want to do with it, right? So if we understand the 5 phases, and we look at, this was a visual model created by Chase Hughes for his students. And it talks about, it's called the 6-axis model. And the way this works is, these are little categories of openness. And the more you can move people up the scale from 0 to maximum, the more suggestible and open to your influence they become. And what Chase likes to say is, if you can get any three of these sliders moving, your influence is you can pretty much get them to do anything you want. So let's look at these really quick. First one is vulnerability. Can we do that? Absolutely. Openness. Can we do that?
Yeah.
And by the way, connection. Can we do that?
Yeah.
And aren't these all things that we want in a healthy relationship?
Yes.
Right. Suggestibility. Can we amplify suggestibility?
Yes.
Fuck yeah. Can we get people to focus in on us?
Hell yeah.
All of a sudden the tools are popping up into your head now, aren't they? Right? And of course, excitement.
Yep.
So we can get all the sliders to move. We only need 3. To the degree that we deepen these, they'll do whatever we want.
It can be an E3.
Any 3.
Wow.
Any 3. But you have tools for all of them. Right? And there's a lot more. Are you awake, Seth?
Yeah.
That lack of oxygen you're going through there, huh? Okay. So you see how they kind of dovetail?
Yeah.
Right. And then and if you look at the 3 Magic Questions protocol and the Universal Persuasion protocol, you have the template. Because you can't do any of these things until you get in a interaction with them, right? I think this is in Chase's book, Ellipsis. If not, he has by the way, he has a great free mind control lecture on his site, appliedbehavior.com. Highly recommend
It's called what?
appliedbehavior.com. Excellent. It was probably the best lecture I have ever heard on mind control from a government perspective and how it works. It's really good. So let's look at the fork in the road. So any comments or questions from our folks at home? It's hard for me to track it now because I can't log into my Zoom.
No, they're talking about Chase using this access.
Okay.
How much has your work influenced his?
A lot. In fact, when he heard I was coming to his seminar, he pretty much gave me the entire, he spent the entire seminar praising me. But, you know, fortunately Chase was actually, he actually, when he was in the military, he was put in charge of a project that had a $30 million budget to research influence and persuasion for tradecraft purposes. And so a lot of his stuff is geared around interrogation and counterespionage. So it's really cool stuff. That not everything in his system is applicable to where we're at. Does that make sense? If you were going to be a professional, you know, counter-terrorist operator, you know, that's where some of that stuff might come in. I've always been fascinated by that shit, so I eat it up like a fucking like candy. But I still have to look at how does it enhance what we do. You know, in Chase's world, it's win-lose.
Yeah.
And so everything he's doing is geared around putting the other person at a disadvantage, to manipulating the other person many times in ways that are not for their highest good, right? Because he recruits spies, right? And a lot of those spies get thrown away when they're done, right? Yes?
People at home are wondering if you could bring the picture back up of the diagram so they can write down the,
Sure.
or post the diagram in the Facebook group.
I can read it for you. Vulnerability, openness. Let me share this. I can't share it. I don't have my Zoom on. All right. Vulnerability, openness, connection, suggestibility, focus, excitement. Vulnerability, openness, connection, suggestibility, focus, excitement.
Can
Okay?
you guys take a screenshot or photograph the
I will.
screen as well?
So it's supposed to call it ellipsis?
His system is called, he wrote a book called The Ellipsis Manual. And if you type in ellipsisbehavior.com, I think it'll redirect to his applied behavior site. So, okay. So now we've got 2 directions we can go. Which would you like to play with first, with the understanding, hey, we're going to take a lunch break, so maybe we'll just jump into it when we come back from lunch. But also, do you want to jump into more of the dating enhancement stuff in terms of intimacy and all that? Or do you want to go more into the profiling stuff where we're looking at thinking patterns of character disturbed individuals, defense mechanisms, things of that nature?
Dating and-
Dating.
I feel like dating would be more incongruent with
Okay.
at least the languages.
Or profiling towards dating?
How do you profile my
With a
date?
dating camera.
But basically, you've got the tools.
Yeah.
I mean, you have 3 magic questions, criteria and values, echo technique.
In face reading, that's where the real, like the pro, all
Well,
of
face reading, and once again, there's 2 forms of face reading. There's active and passive. In active face reading, you're watching the micro expressions and the muscular physiological changes in the face from moment to moment as the emotions modulate across their face. In passive face reading, you're looking at characteristics of their physiognomy, the size of their forehead, the size of their eyebrow ridge, the strength of their jaw, the length of their nose. These are all things that are indicative of certain characteristics or personality types. So one is gonna teach you what's going on with that person in the moment. The other one's gonna show you the life they've had and the life they're leading in terms of their emotional health and attitudes, trauma history, lifestyle, and constitution, right? They're both important, they're both useful. But what changes is the context, right? If I'm looking for compatibility with someone, I'm gonna look at the passive profile. In other words, how many features do they have that are similar to mine, right? The more similarity we have in terms of facial feature, the more likely we are to be emotionally and sexually compatible, right? It's a simple thing. Like attracts like, right? People whose values and criteria are different are going to have problems in spite of the level of attraction that they may have initially. Because long term, these things are going to rub against each other, right? I think it was Annie Lala, who later married Evan Pagan, who said relationships that work tend to work from the beginning. And what that means is basically your criteria matches, your values match, your political affiliations tend to, the more things that line up, the less friction there is. And if you don't have things that you like to do in common, you're asking for trouble. And ironically, one of the biggest indicators of compatibility is your credit score. If your credit score is close to your partner's, you're probably going to get along. Weird shit, right? Okay, so what I'd like to do now is I'd like to give you about 45 minutes to do lunch. Come back about 1:45. We'll jump into the intimacy enhancement interview. We'll give you the theory behind it, and then I'll let TJ kind of extrapolate on how he uses it. I'll throw in what I can, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Sound like a plan?
Yep.
All right. 45 minutes, folks. We'll see you at 1:45 Pacific time.